Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction, and good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Naichi Robeson, and today we are definitely going to talk about security and how it impacts the institution of education in schools. First off, we would like to make sure we can thank Digital Back Office, Dell and Francis, who are on the line, for helping to set this up, and of course, Cave as well. And we would also like to thank everyone for joining us today. This is a very important topic. Being able to discuss the security needs for schools that are going out there is a very, very top priority, especially in this digital age and how attacks are happening now. We want to make sure that schools and people that work in those type of institutions understand some of the security concerns and the evolving threat landscape out there, and how it can impact their school in regards to compliance and safety, and how they can better try and protect themselves around with that. So we're going to be looking at the current playing field right now in regards to what we're seeing, what kind of the state of education is in regards to network security. Then we're going to talk about how we can protect schools from a infrastructure standpoint, and then protecting students and teachers from a kind of a content standpoint. How do you make sure that they're able to get to the resources they need, but they're not able to incidentally allow malicious content into the network or expose themselves publicly as well? So let's go ahead and take a look at the current playing field that we have going on right now. And it may seem a little odd to have a Harry Potter reference in here, but really, what is the most dangerous school out there other than Hogwarts, am I right? So, quick information security Jeopardy for you guys. In what industry does a single compromised record cost about $246 to remediate? Or, what sector often seen multiple thousands of records lost in a single breach, nearly as much as healthcare? In 2016, who were the prime targets of cyber attackers? Which education group often lacks the budget or funds for information security? Oops. Sorry about that. What educational teams have the least trained security professionals? The answer for this, of course, is K through 12 education. There are a lot of issues that can impact this type of area. And this plays into the next one that we want to look at. So that was quick Jeopardy. Now let's do more of a numbers game as well. Because numbers are very, very important when you start talking about being able to control network access, being able to control network security, and how you can handle certain needs that you may have as an educational institution, along with compliance that's also required in there as well. So 276 and 222. What do those numbers actually represent? Well, the average number of K-12 applications and the average number of applications in other industries. So as you can see, compared to other industries that we look at, there are a higher number of applications that are used in this type of verticals. Now, what that means is that's all about attack surface. The more applications that are running in your network equals more opportunities for breaches or possible infections and compromise. 16 and 22%. The average number of K through 12 SaaS applications, and SaaS applications is really big these days, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth. But the question around SaaS applications really is, how do you secure data that you own on infrastructure that you no longer own? What kind of challenges does that present to your network security team? And 22% is the average amount of bandwidth used by SaaS in that K-12 space. Now, that's close to a quarter of the bandwidth going to SaaS applications. And the questions we have to start asking are these sanctioned applications or are they non-sanctioned applications? are our instructors or our teachers, are they using the correct SaaS application, or are they just using any that they find convenient and available? Because it is impacting not just security, but your bandwidth as well. 26 and 80,219. Average number of applications delivering exploits in that K-12 space. And over a 7-day period, we've witnessed an average of over 80,000 vulnerabilities detected in the K-12 space. Once again, this goes back to talking about our attack surface area and how big it can be when you look at it as instances for our entry points for compromise and breaches. And then lastly, 4 and 12. The average number of malware found in the K-12 space over 7-day periods, and 12, the average number of unknown malware found in K-12 over the 7-day periods. Now, known malware and unknown malware present different types of security challenges. Known malware should be the benchmark. Any entry-level security product or security solution you're looking to integrate into your network should be able to identify known malware fairly easily. If it can't go beyond that one aspect of it, then you are leaving yourselves open, because what we really have to deal with is this unknown malware. Malware that can, 0-day malware, it's never been seen before. And we're seeing more instances of that because the ability to change and alter existing malware to something new, so it can't be detected by known signatures, is incredibly more robust and easy to do these days. Now, with that information, let's put that into the context of the challenges that are facing information security officers at these institutions. Most of the times, these institutions tend to be understaffed. Budgeting can be a big problem with that, and being able to have enough resources to respond to security threats can be a big problem. Too many management consoles and devices. You guys have probably sat through plenty of technology PowerPoint presentations, different vendors coming in and pitching you their products to handle certain specific aspects of security. And now it might be becoming a little bit too unruly, especially with a limited staff. How do you make sure that you guys are able to focus and prioritize your security threats if you have to look at 5 or 6 different consoles because you have 18 different point products and you're trying to figure out how they coordinate with each other? Which leads to an overly complex and manual process. Trying to be able to track down, figure out what type of security alerts should be prioritized, and what type of security alerts aren't as necessary to look at. Being able to take the limited resources you have and give them a more specific direction on how they should be utilized. A lot of the issues that we also find in the K-12 space is that the infrastructure does tend to be a little bit long in the tooth. Maybe they're still using certain outdated security practices or relying on layer 4 type firewalls, and they don't have the ability to take the next step and see the whole network view, all that visibility that's associated in there, or what type of applications, user activity, web type traffic, file uploads and downloads, how much SSL encryption is going on, and to be able to articulate what you're seeing from a network traffic behavior or a threat traffic behavior and put it into reporting that is easy to understand, on demand, and makes sense and gives you the information that you're looking for. Get or dine on remediation, trying to figure out, okay, I have an issue going on. Now, what are the steps that I take to fix that? Do I have automated policies in place? So if I do have an alert, security alert pop up, is my infrastructure going to automatically adapt to that, or do I need to dedicate a resource to make sure that we have that remediation going on manually instead of automatically? And then, of course, trying to deal with the quote-unquote political aspect of trying to manage large networks in these type of public K through 12 institutions, being able to handle the demands that are needed from demands that are being asked upon you, while being able to handle everything that's going on inside the actual network itself. So it's a really big challenge right now for our network security team in those educational spaces. And there are some additional security challenges in there as well that just make your job that much harder, especially if you don't have the correct security policies in place. If you don't have a dynamic security environment that's able to help you automate a lot of stuff and give you the visibility you need. And this can be stuff around anonymizers and tunneling applications. Students being, we have back in college and back in high school as well, students understand how to get around your protections that you may have in there by using certain applications like anonymizers and tunneling applications to get around your security policies to access content that they may not or should not have be allowed to. We also have to deal with bring your own device. Obviously, students are going to be bringing in their cell phones, maybe their laptops or tablets, same thing for teachers as well. And if they're connecting to your Wi-Fi network, you have to make sure that you have a strategy to handle unregistered users that may be on the network, what sites they're trying to access, what resources they're trying to access, and how they can compromise their network security as well. If someone brings in an infected tablet or computer from home and bypasses your perimeter security and connects directly into the network, you could have some issues there. And then being able to identify, okay, who is on my network and are they allowed to access certain resources? Then, of course, we have evasive malware. Phishing is a big one that is coming up right now. The way that phishing credential theft is one of the predominant ways to be successful in breaching a network, because if you have legitimate network credential logins, makes it very hard to be detected when you're logging into the network. So now the conversation around, okay, how do I instill good phishing policies in my network? Do my teachers, do my students understand certain security aspects of that? Not going to websites that they're not familiar with, opening emails from people they're not familiar with. And that can lead into a broader discussion about how do I prevent credentials from being sent out, or how do I make sure my internal security is safe in case someone's credentials are stolen? How do I make sure that the damage is going to be limited to what they can do and what they can ask for? And then, of course, we have ransomware as well. We saw this last year with the WannaCry and NotPetya viruses that were going on out there. Ransomware has become a very, very big problem in the world because of how successful it can be, because a lot of the times it may seem cheaper just to pay the ransom to get your data back than trying to figure out how to get around that. So you have to make sure you have a strategy in place, some endpoint protection on your desktops and laptops and servers to make sure ransomware cannot get onto the endpoint or the host in the first place. And then the lack of network and data segmentation. This kind of touches on what we refer to as a zero trust model, making sure that every resource internally inside your network is behind a locked door. And that people, once they're inside the network, just don't have free access to be able to go and roam around, because that just creates the ability for a adversary to get into the network and laterally move east and west to find their target, to find more targets, to be more successful in their own attacks themselves. And along with these types of security challenges, we also have to look at regulatory information as well. The FERPA, the Educational Rights and Privacy Act, federal legislation protecting the privacy of student records, which puts that onto the schools to be able to provide or prove that they have the infrastructure to be able to protect student records from being breached in a compromise themselves. And then the next one, of course, is the Children's Internet Protection Act, which directly goes and affects E-rate programs. So schools and libraries that are subject to FEPA may not receive the discount offered by the E-rate program unless they certify that they have an internet safety policy that includes technology protection measures. And those measures must block or filter internet access to pictures that are obscene, pornographic, harmful to minors, especially on computers that are accessed by minors as well. And these usually have two certification requirements. Their internet safety policies must include monitoring the online activities of minors, and as required by the Protecting Children in the 21st Century Act, they must provide for educating minors about appropriate online behavior as well. So this goes back to the issue around visibility. Does your network security give you the visibility to see who's on my network, what is their web traffic, what websites are they accessing, what applications are they using, and can I prevent that from happening? Maybe does your network security enforce safe search, for instance, for search engines like Bing and Google and YouTube? Making sure that you have a kind of next generation security platform kind of gives you the tools necessary to be compliant with both of these types of security regulations themselves. And teachers are becoming a target as well. Teachers' data, including social security numbers, were compromised during an attack at Prince George's County Public Schools in Maryland, affecting 10,000 of the district's nearly 24,000 employees. And remember that number that we talked about at the very beginning, the cost to remediate a single record breach was $264. And this was 10,000 people. So as a school, you have to think about what that cost looks like. Next example, an employee at a Utah school district clicked on a phishing link in an email last year, and the private data of about 500 employees was put at risk because of that. So it's not just students that we have to educate, it's teachers as well about the different types of dynamic attacks that we see out there. 5,400 student Mount Pleasant incident in Texas, where they experienced a data breach that put 915 former employees at risk. And a former hacker in the school district held it for ransom for these elementary schools. So we can see here that the education space is ripe for attack because of the issues that we've been talking about earlier. Older infrastructure, lack of visibility into the applications, into the network control, usually understaffed, may not be up to speed on new network security methodology. So these are examples of attacks, but be aware out there that KC+ space is very, very high when it comes to targeting. So now let's actually talk about how we can protect the schools themselves. The first thing that we have to understand are the different shifts in the marketplace that we're seeing right now. We had touched on SaaS applications a little bit. Office 365, Box, Dropbox, G Suite, for instance. All of these provide a security challenge because, once again, you may own that data, but you don't own that infrastructure where that data lives, because it's usually if it is SaaS, it's going to be offsite and in the cloud. So how do you control what's being shared? How do you control what's being uploaded and downloaded, what's being shown publicly, what's being shown internally, who has access to what type of files? Are you in compliance? Are you out of compliance from a SaaS perspective? Because these do introduce new risk into it. If someone were to, for instance, successfully get someone's login credentials to a SaaS application like Box, they can go in there and upload a file, a malicious file, to a shared folder based on the fact that it's a cloud application with all the other participants of that shared folder, and now they could all be potentially infected as well. Social consumerization. What type of access are we giving our students and our teachers to applications that aren't necessarily needed for education or for what their workday entails? Bandwidth is a big issue. You want to make sure that our bandwidth is going to applications and web traffic that's good for the students and for the teachers, and isn't just creating a bottleneck for you themselves. And also being able to control access to social media applications, especially in the school, is very important, and how students are able to interact with those social networking applications is also very important as well. And we touched on mobility and bringing your own device, people bringing in their own cell phones, their own tablets and laptops, and how that can compromise your security if they bring in an infected host, or how you want to be able to make sure that you still identify or see what type of traffic is going on through devices that may not be registered for you if they are on your network. And then cloud and virtualization. As networks change and evolve, new opportunities come up for them, and cloud and virtualization is a big one, especially if you start using stuff like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. You have to make sure that you can enforce consistent security policies from not just your own internal network, but pushed out to your public cloud network as well that you may be using. So we have new threats, attack vectors coming in because of these type of shifts that we're seeing. More to SaaS, more to cloud, BYOD, more social media type usage, which can create lots of opportunities for attackers to get in there, especially when we start looking at how legacy systems tend to be working. Most architectures today resemble what you see in this picture, which is a set of siloed organizations and processes and technical infrastructure that has largely been assembled like a big manufacturing production line, where a series of security events roll down a conveyor belt of individual point products. And historically, it's worked in the past, but as the attacks and the attackers evolve, these architectures are becoming to show their weaknesses. And today we see how they've been in their inability to prevent targeted attacks and in their unnecessary costs as well. So we want to try and move away from this because having these types of point products or these UTMs provides a lot of issues that we can look at. For instance, limited visibility. Once again, you can't secure what you can't see. And your security architecture must have the ability to see all applications, users, and the individual devices on the network so you can be successful at preventing attacks and protecting your teachers and your students as well. We want to make sure that we're able to look at non-standard port usage, what protocols are being used, and SSL encryption as well. We have to be able to eliminate all the blind spots if we're going to be able to prevent malware and zero-day vulnerability exploits. Next, this old legacy type of architecture lacks correlation. If attacks are going to be multidimensional, so too must be your defenses. Your architecture must act like a system where individual technologies work together in a coordinated manner to prevent attacks. This would just make it easier on your security team to respond, because the last issue tends to be the manual response. And I know I've touched on this before. With attacks evolving at such a rapid pace, it's critical that we wean ourselves from the man-in-the-middle type of approach, where you have to look at 3 to 4 different types of security systems or consoles and dashboards to try and figure out, okay, am I under attack? Where's the attack going? What are they after? Where in the network is it? Who's infected? We want to be able to have this type of information automatically correlated and attached to your security policies that can respond quickly, either through automation or through pre-set up policies that you may already have. So these legacy systems that rely on point products or on UTM have a bunch of holes in there that make your job as a security admin that much more difficult and leaves yourself open to attack, which is going to cost you more money and more time. Now, we've touched on visibility a lot, and this kind of talks to the legacy layer 4 type firewalls that have been used in the past. The problem is when you look at the information that you get from it, this is typically what you see in that type of instance. You get a source IP, a destination port, and a destination IP in that TCP IP packet. Now, what information in here really tells you anything about that type of traffic besides the fact that it exists? It doesn't provide you a lot of context. It doesn't let us know what type of protocol. Is this going to be encrypted? It doesn't tell us what type of web traffic it is. Is this, you know, in this instance, we're talking about file sharing, which is the URL category. It doesn't tell us what type of application it is. It doesn't tell us what the function of that is. It doesn't tell us what type of file is being transferred inside there. It doesn't tell us what person is doing it or what user is doing it. So you could try to build a clear security picture just from source IP, destination port, and destination IP, but you're not going to be successful because the information that's really important, what's the protocol, what's the application, what does the application do, and who's the user using it, that is what's going to lead you to better security for yourself. And being able to see additional information about maybe destination country, and if you have any data filtering set up to scan for content. For instance, you can create policies to look for you know, test answers that students may be sharing on the network themselves, being able to find that out. So expanding your visibility past just the TCP IP info into more layer 7 information is going to be the key to being able to secure your school in the future. So the requirements for the future that we're looking at, your architecture must be able to detect and prevent threats at every point across the organization. That includes on your endpoint, desktops, laptops, servers, targeting your perimeter and your internet edge, between your employees and their devices. So internal segmentation gateway, zero trust model internally, being able to maintain your security policies and making sure they are consistent when they're not just on-prem, but maybe they're pushed out to the cloud as well. And also being able to protect your data, regardless if it's in a public cloud, your own data center, or if it's using a SaaS application. So it's more than just about the internet edge or the internet perimeter. It's also about all these different vectors that attackers can get into your network from. So let's take a look at how a newer system, a next generation security platform system can help you assist that. The first thing that we can identify is that if you look at something like Palo Alto Networks, it is an integrated approach between our three systems: Threat Intelligence Cloud, Next Generation Firewall, and Advanced Endpoint Protection. So let's see how this plays out. In the upper right-hand side, you can see we have a network view. We have a attacker. There's a old legacy type of firewall. They're going for their target. And it's going to be a waterhole drive-by, malvertising phishing. So someone's just going to a website and accidentally getting infected. So the attacker will be able to install malicious code into the target device without that person knowing that they were infected, which gives them the ability to do ransomware, for instance, and extort money that way. Or they can remove documents and do data exfiltration from the target and be able to get the money that way as well. So just a simplistic view for a different couple of different methods that an attacker could use to get into a network. So how does the next generation security platform deal with that type of threat? Well, if we look at the attack kill chain view, which is everything an attacker wants to be able to do to be successful, the platform matches up with each of these perfectly. Regardless if we're talking about recon, exploiting a user, delivering malware, or exfiltrating the data that we're talking about. The power of the platform is able to prevent these attack kill chains based on what it is that we're doing. Firewall, for instance, the next generation firewall, intrusion prevention, network antivirus, wildfire validation, file blocking, URL inspection, non-standard ports and protocols, visibility into it, gives us the ability to take out that first half of what the attacker can do. By putting blocks in front of each of their steps, we're able to slow down their attack, if not just stop it entirely. And then we have our Traps, which is our advanced endpoint protection product, which gives us the ability to protect endpoints and servers and phones and tablets from being infected with exploits or with malware in the first place, so that endpoint cannot become infected with ransomware and cannot become infected with any type of malware that may help with data exfiltration as well. So what this provides us the ability to do is to be successful in stopping each phase of an attacker's step, either at the firewall or at the endpoint itself. Now, with that, we have emerging technologies that are driving security in here. Data center core segmentation, this is something you want to look at for zero trust networking and micro-segmentation. Virtualization plays in a new space. If someone's able to get into a virtualized data center, they may have an easier time to move around and find different hosts to try and affect. Public cloud offerings as well. Being able to offload some of your infrastructure needs to a public cloud like AWS or Azure. Being able to utilize orchestration software as well to bring up your resources as quickly as you need to be, and then your SaaS applications. So these type of emerging technologies that we've touched on before lead to holes in your security that you have to make sure that you can address, either through something like Aperture for SaaS security, which gives you the ability to look and see what's going on in a SaaS type application, or on the endpoint with Traps, or on the inside your network with a firewall, or on the perimeter with a firewall using a next generation firewall itself. So that would be how we are looking at being able to protect kind of the infrastructures of the schools themselves using the power of a platform. Now let's go ahead and talk about being able to protect students and how we can do that. So what we want to talk about is being able to control applications. Now, if you are using kind of legacy security systems, you may not have really the ability to call out a specific application to block. You can try and block the ports for certain applications that you don't want on your network, but sometimes some applications do some port hopping, and they can go through ports that you've left open. So being able to identify the application itself and preventing the application from coming over any port, not just their default ports, is going to lead to better security for you. And this can help because sometimes these applications that are used at school can be very, very difficult, or can lead to some very, very bad incidents that affects the schools and affects the students. So being able to control or making the compromise that says, okay, if you students are coming into my network and you're going to be connecting to our school Wi-Fi or whatnot, we're going to be very, very strict about what applications you can use and what files you can share on the network itself. So you can prevent pictures from being shared. You can prevent social media applications from being used to upload and download content. And by being able to control those applications, you're able to create a better environment for schools and students. There's a lot more protection in there for that. Next is being able to control data. Being able to identify through content filtering and data filtering certain keywords and red flags. Being able to look for test answers that may be emailing around inside your network, or being able to see emails or messages that are on your network that may have some keywords in there that you may want to investigate a little bit more. And also being able to control your file transfers as well. Uploads and downloads. What file types can be shared? Where can they be shared from? Who can share them? Can we download? Can we upload? Just being able to grasp that control a lot more, so no one can just log into the network and upload and download files without you knowing about it and without you being in control of it. And then that SaaS security. A lot of teachers out there do use stuff like G Suite or Office 365 to be able to do their job. So we want to make sure that we can see into those type of applications to provide security for the teachers so no one can breach their accounts, but also make sure that they're not unintentionally maybe sharing student information or school information publicly that should be shared internally only. So you have to make sure that your security platform is able to handle all these different types of situations as well. And that also comes to encryption, which does complicate your security issues. A lot of the web traffic that we're seeing out there is going to be more encrypted, and a lot of the traffic that you'll see on your network is going to be web-based traffic. If you're not decrypting your traffic, and I understand there are some rules around what type of traffic you should decrypt and what type of traffic you shouldn't decrypt, but if you take out those ones for compliance, all the other type of traffic you should be getting your eyes into, because if it's encrypted, you can't see what's being uploaded or downloaded. You can't see what sites they're going to. You can't see what type of content is being shared that way. You can't see malicious attacks or vulnerabilities that are coming across. It's a very, very big blind spot where you are just opening yourself up to issues and attacks. Encryption is critical, absolutely critical for protection, because not decrypting your traffic just makes it so much easier for you to be attacked. So what a platform has to do to achieve prevention, as to control access and usage, we have to reduce that attack surface by being able to institute application control, and along with application control, file control, data filtering, file blocking. You're able to reduce your attack surface because you're closing off all the access points into your network. If you know what applications your students and your teachers should be using, if you know exactly what applications they should be using, you should be able to create security policies that says only this type of application, only this type of network traffic is going to be allowed, and then you can block everything else. And you want to make sure that you have an easy way to be able to do that. Next, you want to be able to prevent all known threats. I talked about this at the very beginning. That's the baseline. Everyone that's doing security should be able to prevent all known threats. But the big one is being able to detect and prevent new threats. And that's where something like the next generation security platform comes in, because we're able to, using our threat intelligence cloud, being able to identify zero-day software exploits, zero-day malware. And then when we identify them, we're able to share that intelligence with every single Palo Alto Networks product and customer in the world. And if you have that technology, you can get your threat updates to your endpoints and to your firewalls within 5 minutes. That way, we are able to essentially neuter any new threats that come across in about 5 to 10 minutes, and it won't be able to spread across your network. Your security platform must be able to provide you visibility, there's that word again, into all networks, all applications, all users, and all devices to be successful. And then being able to take that information and make it actionable. You know, a lot of the times we get tons and tons and tons of information, security alerts, log information, but we don't know what it means. We don't understand the context of it. So your security platform has to be able to provide you not just with the information, but the proper context so you know how to move forward with that. And this goes to knowing and understanding your traffic. In this instance right here, this is a screenshot from a Palo Alto Networks firewall where we're looking at application usage. Now, this gives you a very high overview and a visual cue to what we're seeing on the network themselves. The type of applications that are on there, type of protocols that we're seeing. We can see SSL, encrypted tunnel, SSH. We can see YouTube being used, HTTP video, and of course, Google-based. So just from a quick snapshot, we can see what are the top applications that are being used in my network and what's the risk associated with those. Now, on the Palo Alto Networks firewall, you're able to create specific views or certain types of information. So this one may just be all network activity. But what if I want to look at high school network traffic that's outbound? So what type of network traffic am I seeing that's leaving my network internally and going out externally? You can have that type of reporting capability built in to help you see your traffic. It's very customizable in that way. You can also take that and turn it into inbound traffic as well. What type of network traffic is coming in and hitting my servers that I have internally? Excuse me. Visibility allows you to create better policies. For instance, being able to associate users with policy as well, using something like user ID, which associates logins with IP addresses, so you know what user is associated with what type of network traffic, which then allows you to create security policies based on what that user is. And on here, we have two examples. We have known user in the top security rule. So if it's a user that we are able to identify, this is the security policy that will apply to them. And then we have a rule for any user where we're not specifically trying to identify the user, we're just allowing access in those. So you can get very granular with your policy based on a user or a user group if you wanted to, which then you can go on and you can add on geo or dynamic blocking. In this instance, we're looking at being able to block stuff from like certain regions of the world, and then we also look like we are getting some dynamic feeds from Span House to help with being able to block certain IP addresses. We can also force default ports. We talked about applications that are able to port hop. You can, usually for default ports, you look for applications that you're going to be allowing. So if you want to allow an application, you can force that application to only be usable over its default port and then stop that application over any other port, which is very good for security on traffic that you're allowing. On traffic that you're blocking, you could say, I want to block something like BitTorrent or RapidShare across any port it tries to come across in the network, regardless of what it is. So, once again, more granularity type of policies that we can look at. We could also match to URL categories as well in your security policy. Multiple security inspection layers are also in there. So on traffic you are allowing, you can scan it through Content ID to look for additional information, such as vulnerability protection in IPS, anti-spyware, antivirus, URL filtering, file blocking, data filtering if you want to. So on the traffic that you are allowing, you're able to scan it for additional threat information, which makes that traffic a lot more secure for you. Then we can also look at some dynamic controls and protection. This is a screenshot from what's known as an application filter. So on the Palo Alto Network Firewall, we have a huge application signature database that we use to identify applications with. We can see here, you can create specific policies that match certain attributes of applications, which makes it easier for you as an admin to be able to figure out what applications do I want to block, what applications do I want to allow. For instance, if you want to strictly focus on networking, encrypted tunnel, peer-to-peer applications with a risk factor of 4 and 5, you can use those type of attributes to create a filter to be able to prevent certain traffic from or applications from being used on the network themselves. In the same thing, you can do the same thing with networking, a proxy. We talked, one of the first slides that we looked at was talking about the difficulties because students are able to use anonymizers or proxies to get around your security rules. Well, now you can create a very, very easy security policy based on those attributes. We can see here proxy, risk factor 4 and 5. You can create a rule that specifically denies those type of applications from being useful on the network, period. Now, this application database is dynamic. It's updated through Palo Alto Networks directly through our dynamic updates. And application signatures are free. They allow you to be able to get the most up-to-date app signatures that are out there for use in your security policies. And along with the apps, you also get threat information. Antivirus information is also available within 24 to 48 hours. Wildfire information, which helps you identify unknown exploits or unknown threats, usually available to download. You can set it for what you want, but the lowest amount of time is 5 minutes, and of course you can set that to dynamically update however you see fit. So another aspect of this is automated updates of threat and application information that's automatically utilized in whatever security policies that you're creating. Now, I touched on network segmentation a little bit here. Now, Zero Trust is an alternative security model that addresses the shortcomings of the failing perimeter-centric strategy by removing the assumption of trust. With Zero Trust, there is no default trust for any entity, including user, devices, applications, and packets, regardless of what it is in its location on or relative to the corporate network. It's promising because it's never trust, always verified. So what you see on here is more of a the old way of doing it, where you have a firewall at the perimeter, and if they're able to get past the firewall, then they have access to any of the data center themselves. We're more of a zero trust model or network segmentation model, is now you're going to pull those out from kind of the open space of the network, and you're going to give them very specific tasks, and you can give each one specific type of security needs that someone would have to be able to access it. So you're moving it away from the public pool, and you're locking it behind its own type of security doors to prevent unwanted access to those types of services. And of course, with security, it requires meaningful reporting itself. This right here is a report that has been set up to run on the Palo Alto Networks firewall that's looking at possibly infected computers, and we're able to figure that out because on some of the boxes, or on the higher end ones, we have something known as automated correlation engine, which is able to look at network behavior and give you a recommendation of what computers may be infected on your network. You can see in that bottom slide. We also have botnet reporting, which is available on the firewall, which is looking at call-outs from maybe infected hosts inside your network, calling out to malicious domains that may be out there. You're able to do reporting based on specific user activity. You have user ID turned on, URL activity, application activity. You can run reports on specific protocols or specific sources you want to do on a specific time frame. Because if you're not able to take and aggregate all the threat information that you're seeing and turn it into something that's usable, then you're really going to have a hard time understanding what your network is doing from a baseline and where it's going forward in the future. So, actionable reports gives you additional information to be able to do that. By being able to use something like user ID or just going off IP addresses, you're able to get information around command and control, suspicious DNS queries, URLs that may be used for malware or phishing, and visiting of suspicious sites as well. So being able to take that information and running reports, maybe based on a domain, maybe based on an IP, maybe based on a user or a URL category, or being able to utilize something like DNS sinkholing on the firewall itself to be able to identify what may be potentially infected hosts, is a good way to be able to look at your network and get a grand overview of everything that will be going on in there. So hopefully we were able to touch on a lot of topics here that gave you guys some thoughts. Network security is incredibly huge for educational institutions, especially with the subject matter and the type of people that are on those networks. We have to make sure that we can protect students and teachers, not just from cyber adversaries or attackers and people that want to do ransomware, but also maybe from some internal adversaries as well. In this day of social media and bullying, we want to make sure that we can protect both of those while remaining compliant. So I hope there was a lot of useful information here for you guys, and I think now we're going to open it up for questions.
Sure. Dale? Hi, this is Dale. I wanted to add, first of all, thank you, Naichi, for that presentation. A lot of what Naichi showed you we can show you with your own data through something called a security lifecycle review, where we can collect data from your network for typically a period of 7 days or longer, and show you exactly what is happening on your network with the kinds of reports that Naichi just showed you. We have one question here. Does the platform eliminate the need for other antivirus software and web filtering devices such as iBoss? What other systems could it replace? The answer is yes. It could replace your current legacy antivirus software and other web filtering devices. We've already done that in several districts here in the state, and we're finding that the URL filtering capability of the Palo Alto networks is as equal to or better than a lot of the other competing solutions. Francis, do you want to add anything?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if I could comment on that as well. One of the great things is being able to consolidate and collapse the security point products that you may have. And this helps because A, it reduces cost, it reduces complexity, because now you're using all these types of protections on a single firewall that's attached to a larger platform. And Dell's directly, he's right when he talks about our URL filtering capabilities because of the dynamic nature of Palo Alto Networks, because we're able to register malicious domains and malicious IPs. We are then able to automatically upload those to our URL categories, which are automatically then shared with all the firewalls themselves. So we're able to turn that threat intelligence information that we're getting from around the world into protections onto your firewall very, very quickly.
Any other questions out there? Here's one. Does it provide offsite filtering for devices? Francis, do you want to tackle that one?
Well, yes, Naichi also can answer this, but the firewall has this subscription that's called Global Protect, which if Global Protect is installed on a remote device, it will be filtered as if it's inside the network. So
right.
all the firewall policies and URL filtering will be applied to that Global Protect installed device. Meiichi, can you add something there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, on those types of devices, you can, that have the Global Protect client installed on there, you can force it. So whenever, let's say the students are taking laptops home that are school property, and the laptops have Global Protect clients installed on them, because those are still school property, a student can take it home, get on their internet, but as soon as they boot up the computer, Global Protect will force them to go and reconnect to the school's network. They were able to enforce all of those same security policies onto that endpoint, regardless of where they are. So we can make that very enforceable from the time they turn it on, or you have a couple of options on how you want that deployable.
This is Nick. One of the things I guess I would like to just sort of throw in as part of this conversation, because looking at the list of participants today, it looked like it was skewed toward primarily IT people. So I'm hoping that you found this presentation very helpful. But since our clientele is also boards of ed and superintendents, I just wanted to sort of maybe challenge you to be thinking about the global policy implications going forward, and also a very important one this time of year, the budgetary implications. Because I was working with the board last night, and they were talking about their first look at their budget and how they're going to make do with everything they need to do with as much money as they're going to get. And I think it's seeing something like this reminds me how important it is not to forget this stuff. That yes, it's another priority. It's another thing we have to think about in the overall scheme of budgeting. But the cost for ignoring this could be significant. And it's frankly a price of doing business nowadays, something that takes money away from quote unquote the kids. But I don't know how you avoid this in this day and age. Every day you read the newspaper or watch the news, there's another data breach. There's another attack. There's another loss of information or whatever. And it's just unfortunately the sign of the times. But that boards should be thinking about, do our policies reflect our expectations when it comes to secure networking, secure computers, and also are we providing the resources necessary to make this happen? And so I would say to the IT people here, part of your job is going to be working with your school administration, your district administration, to make sure boards understand the severity of this and to make sure that they maintain a level of priority so that you don't get caught short somewhere down the road.
Marie, do you want to answer that?
Yes. The webinar will be archived on the CABE website, but I will also email all attendees a link directly to the webinar that you can share with whomever you'd like.
If there's no other questions, I think we can wrap it up. Thank you all for attending. Naichi, thank you for the presentation.